Hello and welcome to the FOXHOLE Feed, episode 27, and oh boy, we have a megalithic episode. When I tell you megalithic, oh my goodness, it's a whole lot. There is so much news to cover. Happy Friday, everybody. Jump into some community news first off and foremost, before we do anything. Let's talk into some community news. Say what's going on with the channel. Lots of videos being uploaded, playing some Battlefront, uploading some footage of that. I have lots of actually Fallout to also upload. Started uploading the side quest stuff. I ran into some side quests while playing the actual main quest, and I, did some of them and just saved them out and just decided, hey, let me just go out and show you guys these anyway. Since I'm playing them, I might as well. I see no reason why to, show one after the other. If I'm making it and playing it, then it makes sense for you guys to see it regardless. Yeah, so we got some Battlefront stuff we're going to be uploading later, playing a lot of that. So we got Battlefront being loaded, we have some Fallout stuff being loaded, possibly loading up some actual Overwatch stuff. Good buddy of mine, Craig, another member of the crew. You guys always hear him talking on my podcast. Good kid. He's going to be possibly uploading some Overwatch stuff. Keeping fingers crossed. Not going to guarantee anything, but, we could have some footage of that actual beta, the PC version anyway. There's no console version of that beta. But yeah, lots of news to cover. A whole lot of news. Some Star Wars Battlefront news in terms of the series. Some news about some Japanese stuff, some big game announcements, some quiet game announcements, sales numbers, and oh man, there is just so much to talk about. Now, in some Star Wars Battlefront news, as you guys see me here playing here now, it's pretty fun. It's all right. EA states that Battlefront is going to see some sequels coming in the future. So they're already teasing sequels for Star Wars Battlefront, but I think anybody already knows this. This isn't really, I don't really think this is something that's like a maybe type deal, like, oh, maybe in the future, we won't get it, and this is just a one-time deal. I think everyone kind of, subconsciously went into this one sort of knowing that yes, this game is going to exist, and yes, they're going to make it. I don't really ever see them not making a sequel to this actual game. I don't know why I can say that, but the original Battlefront had several other games. I know they had a PSP one, they had like 3 games. It was, the first 2 Battlefronts, and they made a PSP one, and those games, they did okay in sales. I believe this game is actually going to crush the first 2 in sales by a large margin. So I don't see them not doing it. EA currently has the Star Wars license for 10 years. They could possibly get that license again if they continue to sell. I wouldn't be surprised if Disney would renew it again. So I'm not really that shocking. Only thing I'd like to say with this one is when would we ever expect to see a sequel to this game? I think we could probably expect a sequel to this game maybe 2 years. I think it's realistic to possibly expect a sequel to it. So all 2016, all 2017? We could realistically say maybe 2 years. We could say possibly ending of 2017, getting a sequel to this game. DICE is a big team. DICE has over something crazy like 700 employees or something. DICE is a huge team. So then also not to be confused with the portion of DICE's team that makes Mirror's Edge. Not to be confused with DICE LA. DICE is made up of several teams. So if you're worried about Battlefield 5 not releasing, don't worry about that. I'm actually sure one of their teams is actually making Battlefield 5 right now. Just like Mirror's Edge is coming out in March, they have another part of their team that makes those games. So don't worry about not getting your Mirror's Edge, or if they'll make a third Mirror's Edge or something, or Battlefield. Don't really worry about that, as I'm pretty sure that that's happening regardless of this Battlefront stuff. I don't want anybody to assume that to have Star Wars Battlefront is to not have Battlefield or Mirror's Edge. They're big enough to make all those happen. So ending of 2017, I'd say, predicting a sequel. Now, in other EA news, I might had maybe a couple of newscasts ago, might have revealed the possibility of EA making a handful of new IPs. So EA states that, they're working on some brand new IPs. They state that they, would like to make a GTA type game in terms of open world. They also state that they're missing an action game. So they state that they don't really have action games, which on a newscast prior to that, actually, I spoke in depth about that. I remember stating that, EA has, they got racing and first person shooter stuff, but they've never really had a, third person action-y type game, if I would say. I can't, because now that I recall, I actually don't think they really do anything like that. They got an RPG series with, Mass Effect and Dragon Age, but I don't recall that they have anything like that, and I would not say Dead Space is anything like that. So I would, some respect, kind of agree. They don't really have that currently set up right now. Now I think about it, and that's not really what they have. So they are looking to create some new IP, and it was revealed 16th this week that they are working with Jade Raymond, creator of the Assassin's Creed series, and they're stating that they are making an Assassin's Creed style action game. So EA building this game makes me question a couple of things. Is this also the open world type game? Because they stated about a month ago that, the company wanted to make a GTA style, game. So I'm not really that, I'm not that shocked that they would choose this person to do it, but I don't even know if this is the game, because they stated they don't have an action game. They also stated that they don't have a, open world-y type game. So I don't know if this is the open world game or if this is the action game. So, maybe I'm confusing it. Maybe it is that. Maybe they just described it that way, in that one of the new IPs they're describing might really be this game in terms of being open world, and they might be referring to it like their GTA type game. In terms of seeking a game that's within that genre, this might actually be that game, and they might have just been referring to a completely other IP when they stated open world. So this game, if they're saying Assassin's Creed style, of course, being open world will lend to GTA comparison as well, as I'm sure many people have made that comparison. So they stated that we've never really operated in the largest genre in gaming. They state, and that's action, which makes sense. They've never really done that, and now they want to. They said that the Assassin's Creed style games, more open world, more single player versus multiplayer. They said it's not been an area where we've operated in. They've recently hired Jade Raymond, who's behind the Assassin's Creed franchise for Ubisoft, and they're building an action genre for us through a studio that they're building right now. From Montreal. So it's great to hear that they're building a studio specifically for this. It's even better to hear that, they're specifically building it with, single player in mind versus multiplayer. I know Assassin's Creed took a lot of criticism for having a multiplayer mode in it and also being like bad. So I think it's awesome to hear that they're building a new studio to make a single player game, with the understanding that treat it with respect. If you're gonna make a single player only game, make a fucking single player only game. In my opinion, I don't really like games that sort of try to add both of them and they try to sit there and be, best of both worlds. And I don't even like that EA does that with Battlefield. Personally, I only play Battlefield for multiplayer. They never added that shit in it. I would never play the single player. I still don't play it. If they removed it, it would not be missed by me even slightly. So Jade Raymond making an Assassin's Creed type game for EA. Who knows what this is going to be like? I don't even know. It could be a historical thing. What if it's a modern day type Assassin's Creed for real? Well, who knows? So this is basically Jade Raymond essentially making her Evil Within. She's making her IP that she helped make before, and now she's making her spiritual successor. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. For all we know, this really is a modern day Assassin's Creed in terms of open world in a city doing assassinations. What if that's this? Who knows? And just when you thought I was done with EA news, oh boy, EA news still rolling out, guys. So EA states they do not want to nickel and dime their gamers. They don't want to nickel and dime players with microtransactions. I'm not really surprised at this news. This news came out on the same day that Star Wars Battlefront released, but they made comments regarding certain games specifically not too long ago. I have a newscast in which I brought up that EA had a comment regarding Need for Speed, about Need for Speed not having nickel and diming type, microtransactions. And by the way, Need for Speed also is not having any DLC at all, from what they're saying. Apparently, they're saying they don't have any planned, but that doesn't necessarily mean we won't get some down the line. I don't even know what this might mean for that. I don't know if this is them really saying they're not going to do any downloadable content for it, because let's say the DLC didn't really do well for that game specifically. Or I don't know if this is them basically saying that they feel their model for downloadable content works best if people merely don't know about it. Now, I've talked about DLC on here before regarding how people feel about it. I'm not going to get too much into it in terms of, the whole DLC, thingamajigger. I'm not really going to get that much. All I'm going to say is if that is the case and they are already working on it and it's already been made and they're merely just waiting to announce it to give some sort of illusion that it was not part of the same thing, in terms of this illusion of singularity and illusion that it was made separate, if they're really doing it for that, I feel sorry for anybody that somehow, I guess takes back their idea of what they think was going on with DLC because of this. Because at the end of the day, like I stated before, regardless of how much you like The Witcher giving out free DLC and some of that DLC is coming later down the line and it really feels like it's being made, the same arguments that it could be cut from the main game actually apply to every game regardless of what they're telling you, because at the end of the day you actually don't really know how it's being made in the first place. So if they are indeed doing this and anybody does end up purchasing this DLC because they believe EA is making it the right way, something sad about that, because technically speaking no one ever knows this ever. So it sounds like maybe EA really is doing this for that purpose. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they really came out and months later came out and did DLC and tried to, or a year later, and sees how people are going to act about it. And maybe people act differently. If they see a spike in sales, don't be surprised if every damn game they come out with in a year and a half later, some DLC comes out, because they want people to, I guess, believe that it was being worked on for a long time. Now, they state this, they also stated this about Star Wars Battlefront, that Star Wars Battlefront's not going to have any microtransactions. They didn't state that about the DLC, but it did state it about the microtransactions, and it is true. I am playing Star Wars Battlefront, and there is no microtransactions in Star Wars Battlefront, so I guess it's true. But this is comments a bit different. They're stating this overall. I kind of felt that maybe this was an isolated situation, but I also felt that clearly something's changed for them to say this. Now, they've made money on DLC. They've been very open about posting how much money they've made on downloadable content. So it's not that surprising to me that they're saying this. Because they kind of know the numbers. They seem to be a company that they don't mind talking about how much they've made off of DLC. They made over $100 million on Battlefield 3's DLC in terms of its premium. I think they specifically said premium, so I don't really know if that's everything combined or, just premium in terms of its season pass. Now, maybe this is just them saying that they don't feel they make enough to warrant, I guess, the backlash from it. And they'll only release it if it's just one thing. And maybe that makes sense to them. Who knows? So now what they stated, so I could go to meat of this little article here. He states how their take on microtransaction actually is in terms of base for the factors for EA's plan. And Jorgensen states, our game teams are they're all thinking through what's the engagement model to keep the consumer. They really entertain the consumer for a long period of time. Now, it goes on to state, when you think about that, it's not really economics, and the economics come afterwards. There might be multiple models of ways to engage people. So he goes on to say, what we want to do is give the consumer a great value for their money to keep them deeply engaged for something that they want to do. So yeah, who knows? So I don't really know how they're doing, because EA seems to, maybe they want to do it in a different way, because I don't know if this means just no micro, I don't know if this means no DLC ever, as much as it probably just means in a different form, no longer in a whole bunch of separate pieces, sort of like how they do it with Capcom does it with a lot of their games. Maybe this just merely means they're going to look more for a deeper model. Now, they go on to state it could be subscription, it could be a subscription that has extra content that's part of it, or it's sole subscription. It could be simply upfront payment for the game with all the extra content that comes over time. So I think that how Ubisoft has done Rainbow Six, I think it's going to change a lot in terms of what third-party publishers might do. If that game goes on to do huge and goes on to do really, really well, maybe they might say, hey, maybe it's a good idea that we do this with our next game. Not in terms of, how can I say it, making it $60 and all the DLC coming afterwards, but essentially making it $80 or something, and it comes with, they're going to play in 40 maps or something like that. Because technically speaking, that's sort of how Battlefield, all their DLC combined is sort of about that. You add in about $50 in there, you're talking about $100+ so maybe they could sit there and find that they could make more money doing it that way, and offer saying the step in price for future content, which is weird, because you're essentially not even buying, spending your money on the content as much as you're spending money on the promise of more content to come later on. You're buying the service, technically speaking, which is weird. So who knows how this is going to actually change their model? Who knows how any of these things will affect future models of gaming? If you guys don't like DLC, if you guys don't like, the subscription things or any of these things, no one's really forcing anybody to buy any of these things. But if you guys get a chance to see what they're doing with Rainbow Six Vegas, or not Rainbow Six Vegas, or Rainbow Six Siege, check it out. Ubisoft's giving out free maps for it, and I believe Microsoft is doing the same with Halo 5. So if you guys ever feel that you don't want to pay for content that's coming after the fact, vote with your wallets. Check those games out, or voice openly, even if you don't buy those games, just voice openly that's what you initially want. That might be something some of the publishers might be open to doing, possibly if they raise the price. I don't know if any publisher is going to be, all of them are going to be willing to do that without raising the price. I don't know. Okay, now on to some other news. No more EA news. Nah, I'm just playing. More EA news. Apparently, they've been talking a lot this week. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, expected. They're going to be saying a lot of things about a lot of crap. The game came out, they're in the spotlight. So last 2-3 days or so, they've been going out and saying a lot of things. So EA states on VR, we really want to see how big the market's going to be. They state that they're not really going to jump into VR until they see a reason to jump into virtual reality. I guess until the market is large enough for them to care about jumping into the actual market. I'm actually okay with this. They state the market is too small, and as a businessman myself, I 100% agree. The market is too small in terms of VR. You do have 200+ developers working on, PlayStation VR, and you have even more working on Oculus Rift. So it's like there's potential for it, but even with 200, that's still really small. I could understand why EA might be apprehensive about doing this, or being cautious about, throwing money into it. Which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's like I worry about any of the third parties who are jumping into VR. I worry about Activision's, about EA. I worry about some of these big third-party publishers jumping into it and basically doing what they do with most markets, using it and abusing. So for all we know, they're going to jump in there and try to throw their first big mega AAA game onto there, and then, use all the stupid gimmicks they possibly can to get their game to be interesting. And we want deeper experiences. We want games like Adrift to come in. We want games like Firewatch. We want games that are not even just those games. Your games 100% made for VR that give a real compelling reason to care about it. So I know many people give EA flack, but the reality is I wouldn't think any differently of another publisher if they really came out and said the same thing. I'd rather hear that they will wait until they feel it's healthy and viable for them to really make something creative, versus, we're going to be in there day one taking advantage of early adopters. So I don't really see this as 100% a bad thing. take it as one less company taking advantage. If they're going to come in when the market's big enough, hopefully they'll also come in when there's enough competition. And that doesn't really sound like that's a bad thing to me. One of my favorite reveals at E3. Oh boy, Lord Jesus is a fire. Project Setsuna, announced by Square. It's going to be being made by their new team. So it's like Tokyo RPG Project or Tokyo some weird ass shit ass name. But I am excited. Game you see in the corner of the screen right near, Juggernaut JRPG galore. They finally showed a trailer for, you know, their new game, and Project Setsuna, which now has a real name. Apparently it's called Setsuna of Sacrifice and Snow. Oh, that name though. I'm very excited by what I saw, what you see here before you in the corner of the screen. So hype, so excited. I loved Bravely Default so much, and this is essentially around the same concept. I'm not saying it's exactly like Bravely Default because I don't know if they have the whole Brave and Default system in there, but it is definitely in the realms of traditional. I would say it's on the same area of Bravely in terms of how Square is doing, you know, some of these titles. I'm very excited for this game. It's coming out on PlayStation 4 and PS Vita. They announced a release date for Japan, which is actually earlier than I ever thought. I didn't even know we would see footage, let alone a release date as soon as this, which is kind of cool. It's coming out February 18th in Japan. Who knows when it's going to, hopefully it'll come out for the fall the same year. I mean, I don't think that's probably going to happen, but maybe 2017 is more realistic, but wishful thinking because we're in the JRPG modes and we want it so badly. So it's looking awesome. I'm very happy that they're deciding to go traditional, turn-based, and just make it that top-down isometric RPG. That is what I want. Yes, Final Fantasy 15 is amazing looking. I will give mega fucks about it. And so is Star Ocean 5, and so is Kingdom Hearts. Those are all great, IPs. They're great titles. I'm all looking forward to all of them. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to sit down and say, damn, all I want is some damn turn-based classic JRPG action. I don't give a damn. I don't give a hell. I don't give a damn. Give it to me. Yes, thank you, sweet baby Jesus. Lord, oh Lord. So just when you thought the JRPG news was over, oh Lord Jesus is a fire. Now, Valkyria Chronicles right here in the corner. Good game. Valkyria Chronicles is going to be getting a remaster for the PlayStation 4, courtesy of Sega. It's going to be coming out PlayStation 4 on February 10th. So yeah, Japan is going to be having a fucking awesome February. Star Ocean 5 is actually releasing in February in Japan as well. So Japan is literally having the fucking greatest February of 2016 in terms of JRPGs anyway. They're having some sort of JRPG fucking heaven at the ending of the 2016 in February 2016. How is this fair? Tell me how's this fair? How does this make sense? I work hard. I'm a bad man. No, I'm a bad person. I don't deserve good things. No, but this is fucking crazy. But Japan is getting so much good shit in February in terms of JRPGs anyway. Man, that's fucking packed February. Seriously, guys? Oh, good. But Remaster's coming, but I think it's also going to come over here in the West, though they didn't confirm anything. Valkyria Chronicles already released here on PC, which I actually suspect that this version is the PC version. So they've already released it on PC. I mean, this is clearly already released for the PlayStation 3 if I'm telling you there's a remaster. So, not impossible. It's very feasible that this game could come to the West if you consider it's kind of already translated anyway. Like, it's already in English and other languages, so I don't really think they won't do it. And I think they could also just do it digitally if they felt like they didn't even want to, lose the money on shipping out a product that they felt wasn't going to sell. That's what it is. So I'm hoping that it does come here to the West. I'm expecting it to. I actually don't think it won't. In other news, slightly related to Valkyria Chronicles, not actually it has nothing to do with Valkyria Chronicles at all. Just ignore what I just said there. So Valkyria Azure Revolution demo is going to be coming with Valkyria Chronicles. Yeah, I lied to you. It actually has everything to do with it. It's good. So they announced the Valkyria Azure Revolution. And basically they announced a full-fledged 4th game in the Valkyria Chronicles series. Oh lord, just when you thought shit wasn't done getting crazy, games getting announced galore. Just when you thought this shit was safe to come out of JRPG, it's not safe to come out, okay, of JRPG house. The second you're inside of that shit, don't come out. Shit's gonna get fucking wild. You open the fucking door, you take a peek out, bam, Valkyria Chronicles 4th title coming out. Good God, 4th title coming out, and they are getting everything. It's coming out in fall 2016 in Japan. It's also coming out fall 2016 in China, in Asian territories, in traditional Chinese. What the fuck, Sega? So this game is coming out all over the place, and the fact that it's even coming out in Chinese, I don't know anything about, you know, Chinese, Japanese characters or anything like that. I don't know how well they translate to each other. It's my understanding they're completely worlds apart. I hear that they don't really share much and they're really, really different from each other. But this is a big deal for them to, you know, release this in Chinese and Asian territories, and in PlayStation 4, you know, not too long ago released there. I'm just like, oh, come on, Sega, throw us a bone. You guys bringing this to China? And y'all gonna bring it to the US? Bruh, Sega, don't be this way. Sega, oh my god, don't be this way. Don't be this way, Sega. But apparently that's going to be happening. So, I mean, I'm holding out for it possibly releasing here. Valkyria Chronicles, you know, 3, which came on handheld, did not release here. Yeah, never came here. Only came out in Japan, never came over here. I mean, hopefully it'll come over here to the West. Hopefully they'll see that there's interest in JRPGs over here, and, you know, possibly they'll bring it. With Sega, who knows? It's really, really, really hard to tell. Yeah, so Sega, you know, fuck you, Sega. Eat a dick. Who gives a fuck? You know, Sega want to act that way. If y'all boys want to act, fuck you too then, Sega. That's just what it's going to be. No, I take that back. Oh god, I'm sorry. Okay, here is another story regarding Sega. Sega is apparently supporting Shenmue 3 Megaton. So basically they state they're interacting with the creator Yu Suzuki, and Sega is now on board to supporting Yu Suzuki in Shenmue 3. Yay. So they state that it is an important IP to Sega. Oh, really? Really, Sega? It's really not important enough to give money to, huh, Sega? It's important, but not enough to give money to. So they say, yes, we want to innovate. They want to back smartphones and virtual reality, which I like. Sega has stated, you know, stuff about virtual reality, and they state that they are interested in making stuff for it, which I think is great. I like that Sega's traditionally Japanese. Put it that way. I like that Sega is sticking to its roots. They're staying sound financially. They're not seeking to try to be the West. They're not seeking to try to make their little Call of Duty, you know, games. They're not seeking to do anything like that, like Capcom and Square, I would literally say shamefully did last generation. They're not seeking to do that. Last generation Sega was extremely Japanese. They released their Valkyria Chronicles. They released like so many weird Japanese games, but they were unapologetically Japanese in sound with who they were. But I believe that helped them, because at the same time, you know, they weren't like Square releasing Tomb Raider and talking about they couldn't afford to. I mean, later they were able to pay for it, but whatever. But they weren't like Capcom announcing that they were going to go, you know, and almost go bankrupt. Capcom was open to being bought out last generation. Guys, don't believe me? You guys check out that news story of Capcom saying that they're open to selling their IPs because of all the FUDs that went on and them coming out here spending all the crazy money that they spent on RE. But Sega, as of late, has actually always been more sound out of the Japanese publishers in terms of the stuff they release out. If they don't feel it's going to do well, they're not going to waste their money on it. They're not going to go out of business chasing other companies. And I'm actually fine with that. It's actually why I always felt great that Atlus was working with Sega, merely because I believe they're a Japanese publisher I could trust that will leave the game to be what it is. I don't necessarily always trust Square because of how they treated certain IPs. What they did with Final Fantasy 13 is something I don't ever want a fucking repeat of. I don't ever want that. And if it's going to be Japanese, let it be unapologetically Japanese. It's a JRPG, let it be that. Please, please, Lord, stop trying to chase Western crap. You are JRPG, stay JRPG. This is what it is. So Sega's not that way. I like Sega going back to the roots. They've always been at the roots. So I like them saying, we are going to stay here. We're going to continue to innovate. They're going to seek virtual reality. And I like them saying that they're going to back Shenmue 3. They state that it's going to show people that we love our legacy, which they should have been doing. Sega says Sega was an innovator with the Dreamcast. They were offering online gaming early in 1998, but perhaps back when they were pushing the boundaries a little too soon. Nowadays, we know what we're good at, and the strategy is to be more gradual. Over the next few years, we want to use engaging content to market, to remind the public why they fell in love with Sega in the first place. I love that quote. That's great to hear that, you know, they are open to backing Shenmue. I love to hear that they're supporting Shenmue 3. That is, like, you guys don't understand how big of a deal that is for me to hear something that great, because I always stated that one of these publishers will come out and they will back, you know, this development. Regardless, one publisher is, because someone's going to come out and do it, and it's great that the person that owns the IP is actually doing that. They should have always backed it, and I believe that it should never have taken this long. I believe when the Kickstarter was successful, Sega should have, you know, said something at least to say we will support it. This is big deal. So they state in some recent business news regarding the IP for Sega, former president, he mentioned Shenmue regarding its important IP, and they said not just Sega. They said it's an important IP, and it's not just them that, you know, support and believe that. So they say that they're backing, so the site is saying this. They say that it appears that Sony Entertainment is backing the development of Shenmue 3, which I don't believe they are. I believe they're backing the marketing, so in some respect they're marketing, they're paying for something. But I would not say outright development in terms of physically paying for the people to develop the game as much as paying for the marketing of said games. They say Shenmue is a Sega IP. There are any plans to support this effort. They say Shenmue, of course, is important IP to us. And they say that Shenmue is important, and it's not only important to just Sega. I guess they're just basically saying what I told you in that quote earlier, that it's not just about everybody. It's not just about Sega backing it, that other people want to back it as well. They said it was the first of its kind anywhere to do anything in terms of open world style games on top of what Mr. Suzuki has done, his strong desire to make Shenmue 3. And I agree, it is easily one of these games that defined what open world really was going to be to many people. GTA 3 was a game that essentially came out and pretty much was that in terms of open worlds running around, but even it lacked the amount of detail and attention to scale and all these amazing things that Shenmue, you know, did amazing. Even GTA 3 lacks a lot of those things, and it seems like, you know, back when this game was first made, it was just one of a kind. 1999, seriously, people, one of a kind. It was a couple years before any other game even came close to that type of, you know, deep, dense type of understanding of open world stuff. They were really great with that. So he says, of course, they're interacting with Mr. Suzuki now. They're going to continue to support him concerning Shenmue 3. So who knows? Who knows how far this is going to go? Hopefully we get a, you know, re-release of Shenmue 1 and 2. We get either a remaster of it, which would be nice. So if Sega remasters it, I'm going to be very happy about that. I'm thinking that they will. I don't see any reason for them not to bring those two titles over. It's not going to cost them much money. And, you know, it could get the ball rolling on getting people interested in Shenmue 3. If they play the next two Shenmues, maybe they'll be interested in jumping on board playing Shenmue 3. It's not even that expensive of a marketing. Ports are about $1 million. So consider they could spend about $1 million and a half porting the first two Shenmue games, you know, to modern consoles, and they could spend $1.5 million doing this in a couple months, or, you know, or in a year with an extremely, you know, polished port, and they could get the market caring about, you know, people who don't know Shenmue. They could get everybody else really getting to know, why is this such an interesting IP? Why is everybody caring about this? They could get people caring about it, and I think that's a big deal, because marketing, you don't be shocked about how much these companies spend on marketing. These companies, upwards, like Activision, spent upwards to $200 million marketing a Call of Duty game. Sega could spend $1 million to market Shenmue in terms of a port, because the port will market Shenmue 3 easily. And just when you thought I was done talking about JRPG games, Boys better sit down. Basically, trying to say here's more JRPG things are happening. Disgaea has been announced to be coming to PC, people. So that's right. Nism America has announced that Disgaea is going to be making its way to PC via Steam. There's a pre-order right now if anybody feels like, going out there, giving a fuck, getting it. I mean, this is nice. This is nice that Disgaea, first Disgaea is getting, a PC version. I think that's kind of cool. This is good to have any type of JRPGs coming to PC. We don't have a lot of them coming to PC. The series has previously only been available on console. So it's in terms of it being similar to FF Tactics, or being sort of like Niz's version of FF Tactics. Came out on PlayStation 2, and it's only really been on PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 4. So it's nice to see that they're spanning out and releasing these titles on PC. So they can get more money. These titles are niche, and they're not really going to go out there to, captivate a huge audience. So I like to personally see lots of these. I like to see Square going out and releasing titles on PC. I like to see Sega doing it with Valkyria Chronicles on PC. I like to see, Niz doing it. I like to personally see more people putting games out on PC, to be quite honest with you, only because it's an open market. There's a huge install base that could be playing this game versus a closed install base, and I don't believe these developers should shy away from PC. With consoles, having, x86 architecture, I personally think that we should see more games released on PC from Japanese developers in terms of these niche JRPGs on PC. There's a home for these games on that platform, and lots of people are able to play it. It's something that should have been going on, in my opinion, long time ago. It can't just be PlayStation and Nintendo platforms that are running game on JRPGs. The PC exists, and PC has lots of Japanese type games. So I think that they should take advantage of that open market and start doing that more. Regardless of whether you guys like PlayStation or whether you guys like Nintendo, like games. This is great for those games, and even if you like either of those platforms to play your JRPGs on, understand that if they exist on one platform, they may not exist at all. The more platforms these exist on mean, the more you'll be able to play the sequels of them. This is a good thing for us. So JRPG fans, this is a good victory. These things coming to PC is awesome. And, that's going to be wrapping up my JRPG news. Just so you guys know. So I'm not going to be throwing any trolls at you. There's more JRPG news. I'm not going to say anything like that. In Fallout 4 news, oh lord, Fallout 4 is out here breaking records, people. Fallout 4, if you guys haven't already heard, out here breaking some huge ass records. Fallout 4 ships 12 million units in one day. So Fallout 4 is now, breaking crap load of records. I'm not even sure how many records this damn thing broke. It broke a lot of records. I know it broke a lot of sales in terms of retail. Over $750 million of revenue earned from this game, which is huge for them. Very, 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 very huge for this team to make this, especially with a title like this, being very RPG. Most RPGs do not see these type of numbers. This is not the norm of, I would say, RPGs to receive. So this is awesome to hear that. The last Fallout 3 sold about 8 million units over the course of years, though. Fallout 3 sold 8 million, 9 million, I believe, if not maybe higher. 9 million the last I recall, in terms of making those numbers over time. So this is going to be even more. That is going to be essentially, I would say, more in the future. The number will continue to grow. This is just what we know of from its initial release. Now, this is 12 million units shipped. A lot of people get confused regarding the shipped units versus the sold units. I know that's, up to debate a lot of people. For me, no debate. I used to work in retail before, I became an independent businessman. Used to work in retail, and I can tell you right now, working and receiving in retail, in a retail store, yeah. I see what goes on. I know what happens, and I've done shipping in terms of ordering products from vendor and getting those products in to put them on the show floor. Shipping means buying to retail. That's what that actually means. The store I worked for bought items, and the items that we bought in bulk, in hundreds, sometimes thousands purchased in bulk, we paid for. So we bought those things in bulk from the vendor and then sold those things at, the different price. We clearly buy it at the bulk discount and then sell it at a completely different price. So the relationship between vendor and retailer, it's not what you think. The retail store is buying those games from the publisher. They are then selling it at the discount, and they're making the profit in the difference. They buy it at the bulk difference, they buy it at the bulk, they sell it, and then they get the difference, and that's how they actually make their profit. And the game developer clearly is just, getting money. They could care less what the fuck you sell it for. They're getting paid, and that's sort of, they're there to make it paid. They need to be able to sell it for that so they can get paid, so they don't really care. Here's an example, just to help it make sense to some people that don't get the shipped understanding. If I'm Walmart, and this has happened to some retail stores before, and the publishers don't care because it's none of their business. If I'm Walmart and I accidentally put Fallout 4 for $20 and 100 people happen to buy Fallout 4 for $100, if I'm Walmart, I lose out on that money, because at the end of the day, if I'm Bethesda, what do I care that you marked the game off wrong? That's not our problem. Our job was to sell it to you, and once we sold it to you, we don't really fucking care. Their job is to sell it to retail, and if retail makes the mistake in terms of mismarketing it or labeling it, and they sold it, that's actually not, those differences does not come out of Bethesda's box. It technically comes out of Walmart's, because Walmart bought it. Think about it like the drug game, all right? Somebody's buying Coke, they're mixing it up with a whole bunch of other, stuff to make it like crack, and it's not going to be 100% pure. But what do the people who are making the drugs in terms of the drug pinkins, what the fuck do they care? They don't care. They're selling it to you a buck, and they could care less where you sell it and for what price you sell it. It's not your business. So don't let that confuse you. Bethesda very much made a huge killing in terms of 12 million units sold on initial release. Insane. They banked. They did a good job. And huge. In other news that may come to a shock to lots of people, to me, I don't really know if I want to say this is a huge shock. It's actually not that big of a shock to me. Halo 5, speaking about numbers, Halo 5 has sold fewer Xbox One consoles than fewer Xbox consoles in general than any other Halo series in existence. Now, Halo 5 released, and it's clearly not seeing Fallout numbers. It's selling much less than the previous entries. Now, Halo 3 moved a lot of units for them. Halo 3 went on to move over 500,000 units when it released. Halo 3 actually released the same time period for the 360 that Halo 5 is actually releasing for the Xbox One. Halo 3 released 2 years or so, almost exactly within the 2-year range of actually coming out. They came out with the 360 at the ending of 2005. So you want to say it's all of 2006, all of 2007, and ending of 2007 they released it. So no different than ending of 2013, all of 2013, 2015, and ending and releasing. So, we had to do a little bit of some year math in terms of gaming. Yeah, and it moved 500,000 units for the 360 when it released. This is releasing same time period, and it's moving 300k units versus 500,000 units. This is like, I don't want to say it's doom and gloom, but it's definitely showing its wear. This is very much showing that people are not jumping to purchase it, the same way, they would do it the way they did it prior. That's a huge, big deal, that the fact that it's not generating that sales is bigger than most people think. I know that, the initial Halo that comes out on a platform is a huge deal, but to my understanding, the series itself has been able to generate just as many sales, within the month of the release of their titles, over time. Example, Halo Reach moved around 500,000 too, and that came out, years after the, 360 launch. So, this is low regardless of comparison. This is actually low. And, the story that I'm linking to you guys that you have to understand is Titanfall sold actually more units of Xbox Ones than Halo did. That's kind of crazy. So I don't really know what this really spells for them. Maybe the series is kind of showing its wear. Or maybe that the series has become so popular that the purpose behind buying the system initially is to get Halo. So for all we know, that everybody who bought the system initially for the Master Chief Collection are those people who purchased it when it first came out, because they're the hardcore that clearly the game is going to do bigger numbers than 500,000. I'm not surprised if they reveal that this game did a couple million units upon its opening day. Clearly not that big if we're seeing this regarding the system sales and regarding why Microsoft hasn't actually announced those numbers. But they'll be okay. I think the series is sort of just showing its wear a bit. It's a series that has a lot of releases. They released 4 Halo games last generation alone. That's just a lot for this series, and I think that maybe they should slow down. And I think that maybe we should have Halo release a little bit fewer to work on those things, almost like how I feel with Assassin's Creed as a yearly thing. Give the series a break, give it a rest, work on the mechanics, and then come back to us when these things could be missed a bit and when they could refine it versus, yearly or even bi-yearly. I don't know if bi-yearly is good for this actual series right now. And one of the last news stories I want to end you on, well, not really one of the last news stories I want to end on with this one is a Megaton 1. Most of the news I usually do during the week, during the weekend, I might, find something interesting and I might, have the microphone out and I might record it, and say my opinion on it. This one came Thursday night. Okay, we're talking right before I was already done. I literally actually had to redo an entire portion of this one simply because it came pretty late. The news came late, people. I had to literally go and how can I say it? I had to essentially redo some of it. Not all of it. I just had to redo some of it. Open up my little editor program and have it already say. Oh, thank God I always saved them, and it just saved it and I had to re-render it. Because it takes a while for my stuff to render, and I had to redo it because of this news. Now, I was going to state this news story during the regular cast, and I originally didn't simply because it was still rumor territory, and I actually already covered this on the rumor, and I didn't want to recover an existing rumor, since it doesn't make any sense. Now, if you guys, follow the newscast, you'll know that I stated, PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 emulation was something we believed was happening due to the whole Star Wars racer and the whole bundle that was showing PlayStation titles, or PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 titles, which was questioning, why y'all showing here PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 titles, but, nobody's also confirming to us whether these titles are even ported or not. So no one knew what was going on. If you consider that, EA and LucasArts and nobody else was saying that they brought these titles over. So it was wildly believed that, this was confirming PlayStation 2 emulation, along with some ESRB of a couple of other titles. That made it seem all but confirmed. And I stated on the previous newscast that I was putting it in the territory of it might as well be confirmed, literally. So, right here, 100% confirmed, Sony is confirming PlayStation 2 emulation is coming to the PlayStation 4. This is from Wired magazine. So, Wired, really respected publication, 100%, legitimate. They are as legitimate as it comes in terms of tech stuff. Now they say Sony is working hard to bring PlayStation 2 titles to PlayStation 4. The company confirmed to Wired Thursday evening. So if you guys are getting this, podcast a little late, understand that I got the news a little late myself. Came home, was ready to already start uploading on YouTube, and then I seen it and I was like, oh boy, now I need to go back and then re-upload and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, we had to stop, cancel, re-upload, do everything else, only because I didn't want to, cover the rest of the rumor stuff because it was what I already previously told you guys prior. Yeah, so they're essentially confirming it, that they are doing emulation to PlayStation 2 is on PlayStation 4 is going to be confirmed. It's already confirmed by Sony. We don't really know if it's PlayStation 1 stuff that's also going to work on there. I don't know if it's to be assumed that because PlayStation 2 is native with PlayStation 1 that it's also going to work with it, or if they really mean just PlayStation 2. I'm pretty sure if Sony meant for it to be PlayStation 1 as well, they would have stated, PlayStation 1. So, but I do believe that maybe they're saying PlayStation 2 because they're saying like the PlayStation 2 system played PlayStation 1 games. So we mean PlayStation 2 because it also played PlayStation 1 games. I actually think that's what they mean because they're, you know, some of these games are the Star Wars titles are under were PlayStation 1 titles. So because of that, yeah, I mean, they have to essentially mean that for the PlayStation 2 as well or PlayStation 1 as well. So, you know, hey, maybe we're not 100% wrong on this idea that maybe, you know, boys don't want to come out here throw your boy a bone. Maybe they want to come out here and give us some PlayStation 1 shit as well. We need anything that we can fucking get, guys. All right, at this point, we need anything we can possibly get. One of them is like a Super Nintendo title, like the Super one, which is like, why? What? You know, forget it. But they're confirming it. So it's awesome to know that this is, you know, coming. A lot of great PlayStation 2 games. You know, we're going to get covered, that we're going to be playing. I think it's cool that they're, you know, have BC to PlayStation 2. That's pretty badass. So apparently, you know, indicated that the company was pursuing this, you know, since last year, which we kind of had an idea since last year that they were pursuing BC, but it was such a deep rumor that I was like, who knows? I think it was such a rumor that no one really felt it was kind of true because we had a lot of reports that were stating that, but it was so wild. It was like ending last year was like, yeah, okay, sure. But because of all the recent news with Star Wars and hell, because of Microsoft doing BC, that might have been enough to tell people, I mean, it's not out of the norm. It's not impossible. And now it's not really, you know, in the realm of not happening. So yeah, they're going to release this emulator on PlayStation 4. You're going to be able to help yourself. PlayStation 3, not confirmed. They're not doing that at all. And yeah, so it's like now it's going to essentially be able to make the library much more grand. You could play your older PlayStation 2 titles in there. So they declined to comment on other features, and all they did was confirm that, you know, it is happening, and emulation is, you know, how that game was even running in general, how it's running right now, I think, which is cool. So it's what it is, and awesome, and yeah, get your JRPGs on, and now all the JRPGs that I talked about, you know, you could actually play. So pretty megaton, but I assume they're saving more announcement stuff for PSX, but it's like, you know, fuck it. Why wait for the 6th and 5th? Let's just go announce it now. So hopefully they'll announce more news on the 5th and 6th with, or excuse me, I believe it's like 6th, 7th in December, PSX. They'll save more news for it. So to end this off, like to talk about some more numbers. This is the strangest story I came across this week. This story is so crazy. You guys know how I like my numbers. I really like numbers. I don't know what's wrong with me. Numbers I like. Now, some man has spent over $30,000 on Star Citizen. You heard correctly, not just space credits. I'm not just telling you, oh, he worked hard in-game and this is in-game money. We're talking about real life, put it on your motherfucking hands, put it in a bank account, money. Let it rain on you, money. Butt naked full of honey, and let the dollar bills stick to your honey. So this is crazy. So he spends this on this. First thought this was pretty nuts, pretty wild, and it is, but it comes into full perspective when you sort of hear what he has to say. I can't laugh at him too much. As crazy as this is, I understand. I'm starting to sort of get and understand where this might be coming from. Now, he states that literally has everything, because apparently $30,000 essentially buys you everything currently in the actual game. Everything. So he basically spent money to get everything in the actual game. He says the highest package of the actual game is called the Completus Mile High Club, which is a base package that's $15,000. Owns that. He says, you know, he started playing the game years ago, he got into it, and he states afterwards he started to see the project mature. He's convinced that this is the game he's ever dreamed of. He got hooked and he went in deep. This guy works for a very large company, and so paying for Star Citizen, for him playing Star Citizen is, you know, it's not from his main job, apparently. In terms of what he's paid to pay for the content that he's bought in Star Citizen. It actually comes from side jobs. He works for some computer company in terms of the computing operations industry. So clearly he makes a lot of money, but he states that he paid for this through his side job. He says some people, like to buy real boats. He likes to buy pixel boats. And you can't blame the man. So he's grown up his entire life thinking where, you acquire your entertainment is from your choice and you shouldn't be judged on that. And I can't disagree with this man, because I think, we as gamers almost get to this point where we start to not see ourselves as equals to people who love music and who love film. We don't see ourselves as equals to that. You might get a guy who says, oh, I work in computers and I make a lot of money. And oh yeah, by the way, I have a movie theater in my house. Or I have a backyard that has like a whole, golf thing, and I spend all this money to do this whole golf landscaping thing. You have people who like hobbies and they literally will spend lots of money on them. Think of the people who fish. Those boats cost money, and he brings up a good hobby when he states that. And I think that sometimes people think of it's crazy that somebody would spend this much money on something like a game, and I say you spend this much money, you have people, who spend this much money on their own, hobbies. Why not games? If you guys had the money and and you lived pretty good and you worked in an industry that gave you lots of money and you had a hobby that was gaming, why not pursue it and say, what, I'm going to spend this much money to have everything inside the entire game because I can. Why not treat yourself? So it sounds nuts. He states that he's spent 10 years of his life gaming in World of Warcraft. He's met amazing friends in it. Says the community is a social aspect in the game, so he really seems to get into MMO type games. He also goes on to state some stuff about Cloud Imperium Games. I released a news cast long ago, a couple months ago, regarding that people who believe that the game was false and they believe that there's a whole bunch of things that are going around and they're lying and it's a scam. And this guy who spent $30,000 goes on to say that it is not true. He said he's been there. He says, he's seen it. He's been there, and he says it's not true. That is false. That it is a real thing. And big ups to Chris who is saying this. Very crazy. Though it's really, really crazy. I can't get on this man, because if I had that much money, I don't know if I would buy that much stuff in terms of in-game stuff. That's really nuts. Let's say you could buy some sort of battle cruiser, or let's say you could buy a fucking planet or something, or you could buy something that's just huge in Star Citizen, and let's say no one has ever done this, and you bought a planet and you exiled it and said only my closest friends could go on this planet. It was the only planet of its kind or something like that on this game. That would be fucking impressive and awesome. If I had the funds, maybe I would do that. So, let the man ride on his hobby. This is his, don't laugh on him. Get off the man. Closing it out, I'd like to close out a little bit of community news. Going to be loading up a podcast. My boy Craig and I are going to be talking about various gaming topics, as we always do every week. Going to be loading up some Fallout stuff. Got some campaign stuff of Fallout to load up. I have some multiplayer stuff of Star Wars that's going to be loading up. And yeah, we're just going to be focusing on those two games. So lots of news to go over. Personally like doing this sort of weekly wrap-up thing. This went on really long, but probably one of the most news-filled casts I've done in a long time. I would say outside of game announcement stuff in terms of press shows. So yeah, that's about it. And yeah, this game.